त्वमेव माता च पिता त्वमेव त्वमेव बन्धुश्च सखा त्वमेव विद्या द्रविणं त्वमेव सर्वं मम देव देव। श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तिसुदेशिकेन्द्रं द्वैपायनं सूत्रकृतं मुनीन्द्रं श्रीशङ्करं भाष्यकृतं यतीन्द्रं मद्देशिकं चापि नमामि विद्यै। ओम नमो ब्रह्मादिभ्यो ब्रह्मविद्या संप्रदायकर्तृभ्यो वंशऋषिभ्यो महद्भ्यो नमो गुरुभ्यः। सर्वोपप्लवरहित प्रज्ञानगणः प्रत्यगर्तो ब्रह्मैवाहमस्मि। ओम प्रपन्नपारिजाताय तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। Pranams everyone. We are in the second chapter where we are discussing Atma's Lakshanas or the features of Atma. And in particular we are looking into Sloka 16 where Bhagavan talks about the most important feature of Atma from an Advaitic standpoint. We'll go through the shloka once and then we'll continue. Sloka 16. Shri Bhagavanuvacha Nasato vidyate bhavaha na bhavo vidyate satah ubhayorapi drishtontah tvanayos tattvadarshibhi. So here Bhagavan says there is no existence for the unreal and there is no non-existence for the real. In short, what we understood that to be Brahma Satyam, Jagat Mithya, Atma Satyam, Anatma Mithya. Brahma Satyam, Jagat Mithya. And here what we have to understand is Mithya means something that is not having existence in all three states. Whereas Satyam is one which has got existence in all three times, which is past, present and future. And Satyam has an independent existence. Mithya does not have any independent existence. Its existence is borrowed from Satyam. The examples that we had taken were rope and snake. Rope and snake example we took and we said the snake that is seen by the person on the rope has no independent existence. Its existence is borrowed from the rope. And the snake was not there before he saw the snake. The snake is not there for experience after he realizes that it is the rope. And just because something is experienced, it does not become real. And just because something is experienced, it cannot be real. And something which is real need not be experienced. So these are the two things that we have to understand. Something that can be experienced need not be real. The example we saw in the rope and snake, we also saw in the case of mirage. We see the water, we experience water, but there is no water. We experience sunrise, but there is nothing called sun actually moving from east to west. So just because something is experienced doesn't make it real. And then the other thing is, something that cannot be experienced does not mean that it is not there. So Brahman is there but cannot be experienced at all times. It cannot be experienced at all, in fact. And the example again, the rope snake. At the time of seeing the snake, the person does not experience the rope. Does that mean that the rope is not there? No, the rope is always there. But just because the person does not experience rope doesn't mean it's not there. So these are important correlates. From where out of all this, what do we actually do it? What do we have as takeaways? Basically, the Jagat is Mithya. Jagat is Mithya, meaning we need not give too much importance to this world. That is the key message that we have. We interact with so many people, and if we have a sensitive, fragile mind, then we have a problem in dealing with this world. Because different people will use different language, they will have, and some people will give recognition, some people will not give recognition, some people will give over recognition, some people will reject us, they will insult us, there will be gossip around us. All this, if it is going to hit our mind, then it is a problem for us. So what we have to take is basically this world is mithya, it need not be given that much of importance. And the world is changing. People change, their minds change, our minds change minute to minute, second to second. Then what to talk about other people's minds? Some people will be loving us today, may actually reject us tomorrow, and then love us back again day after. These things will happen. So the idea here is understand that the world is not a place from where we can expect any kind of emotional support or stability. The world is fragile. It has to be handled with care. And the same thing with our body and mind also. And therefore, our mind, we will have to handle it with care. So, Brahma Satyam, Jagat Mithya, Atma Satyam, Anatma Mithya. Our body, we are not able to rely on our own body. Forget the other people. We think that we will be able to do something. We will think we should be able to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. We are not able to. We would want to snooze the alarm. Our own body, we are not able to rely upon. Then what to talk about the world? So, and then I also said in the last class that we will discuss about how Adi Shankara provides explanation for this shloka. We had gone halfway through there. We'll do from the start. So Adi Shankara, for this, he basically picked up from the previous shloka. In the previous shloka, we know that we have Samadukka Sukham Dhiram Somrutatvaya Kalpate. We have that all the Sitoshna Sukha Dukkada, which is in Sloka 14, which are actually the features of Anatma, where we discussed about Anatma, and we said Anatma comes in pairs of opposites. Anatma has pairs of opposites, Sita, Ushna, Sukha, Dukkha, all these happen. And therefore it is bound to change, and we have to accept it as what it is. So he basically picked it up from there, and he said, Sitoshnadi Sakaranam Asat. So basically he took saying that all this Sita, Ushna, Sukha, Dukkham are all Anityam. We saw that Agama Payina Anityaha. These are all Anityam, and therefore we should have Titiksha for actually accepting it. So he says, Adi Shankaracharya says, basically, he takes all these things, he says the body and whatever be the cause of all of these, we classify them as Mithya. So this is Mithya. And why it is Mithya? He says basically, Vikaratvat. The cause, why it is Mithya? Because the cause is, it keeps changing. Anything it keeps changing is Mithya. The body keeps changing, Mithya. The mind keeps changing, Mithya. The world keeps changing, therefore Mithya. And then, if everything in this world keeps changing, then there could be a question, or there could be somebody who says, then the whole world is actually Shunyam. That there is nothing there, everything is changing, and therefore everything is Anatma. Only Shunyam exists. So, Shankaracharya wants to negate that Shunyavadam. So he takes an example for negating Shunyavadam. He says when we take an object and when we look at that object, example this laptop or this book or this phone or whatever, or this cloth, if we do a vichara, then what happens is there are two things that come into our buddhi, our thought. There are two vrittis. One is the book as a vritti, and then book exists as a vritti. So there is two buddhis, Sat Buddhi and Asat Buddhi. Asat Buddhi is book, exists is Sat Buddhi. So in this case, for example, laptop exists. So I've got two buddhi, laptop buddhi and exist buddhi. And then what happens is Sat Buddhi Anuvartate. He says that the Sat Buddhi, existence buddhi, is constant. It does not change. So when I look from laptop to another item like a phone, then I say laptop exists, now I say phone exists. So the Sat Buddhi is always there, but the Asat Buddhi keeps changing. What is Shunyavada's argument? Shunyavada's argument is basically nothing exists. So Shankaracharya will have to prove that one which is always present is the existence principle. So the existence principle always exists. That cannot be negated. In other words, the one who says that this exists is the Sat Swarupa, is the existence principle. For me to say, he basically puts the argument, even for a Shunyavadi to say that nothing exists, somebody should say that nothing exists. That is the existence principle. So, that existence principle cannot be negated. And then finally, he also wants to prove the next step, which is Nashte Gade Sat Buddhi Na Drishyate. Which means once the pot is destroyed, Nashte Gade Sat Buddhi, the existence buddhi, Na Drishyate. The existence buddhi is not destroyed, but is not perceived, is not seen. So basically, another objection could be raised, and he is countering this way. The counter argument here is, okay, you say the laptop exists and then the phone exists, but when the laptop gets destroyed, for example, in this case, let's take a pot as an example. Pot exists. Then when we say that the pot is destroyed, then does it not, the existence also gets destroyed? No. What we say is, when the pot destroyed, we look into another object, then we say the cloth exists. So from the cloth existence is there. So the existence buddhi now goes to the cloth. So the Sat Buddhi is not destroyed. Asat keeps changing. So now the other person could argue saying that, the pot, what happens if the pot awareness is also exists? So he is basically trying other means of countering this. He says, first he said that the Sat Buddhi is also destroyed. Now he said, no, the Sat Buddhi is basically transferred from one object to another object. Now he gives a counter argument to say, okay, now you say this one. What if I say then the Asat Buddhi is also Sat? In the sense, even after the pot is destroyed, why can't the pot awareness be there? And he says, when the pot is destroyed, there can be awareness on another pot. So the Gata Buddhi, the Asat Buddhi, the Gata Buddhi, the Buddhi on the pot does not get destroyed. And it also continues like existence. And therefore, the awareness of the object, but what we say is, when the pot gets destroyed, the awareness of the pot is removed. It goes. And then another pot appears, so it comes and goes. So anything that comes and goes is mithya. It cannot be classified as nityam. It is only asat. Therefore, pot buddhi can never be sat. Remember, when we say pot exists and then cloth exists, in between, even if there is a gap, so the next argument he is bringing is, you say the pot exists and then another pot appears, there is a gap. So therefore, because of there is a gap, the pot awareness goes and then another pot awareness comes, then this pot awareness goes and then another cloth awareness comes. So because it is coming and going, you claim that this is anityam or asat. But is it not the same with the existence? Existence also keeps coming and going. So the argument here is, existence is always there. Remember, pot and cloth changes. But here existence is always there. But the existence is not visible until there is some asat. The main tattva is, for the existence to be experienced, a name and form is required. A reflective medium is required. So for me to say that this exists, something, an object must be there for me to say that this exists. And we say that the nama rupa is required for sat to exist, sat to be visible. Now, if you take away all these arguments about pot, if you don't understand it, leave it aside. But what is the main principle that we want to establish here is, the sat as in Atma, for it to be made evident, we need a name and form. And that is why we take the example of light. Light cannot be seen through our eyes. The eyes do not have the power to see light. But what we see is basically the light reflecting on the objects. If we are able to see something, it's because the light has been able to reflect, and we see only the reflection of the light. So light will not be visible unless there is a reflective medium. And that is why, even though sun is so bright in outer space, when you have watched many of the movies, in Hollywood movies and whatever, there are even some documentaries about outer space. The outer space is always pitch dark. The reason is, there are no objects there to reflect the light. And only if there is an object that reflects the light, like a planet or a moon or something, you basically are able to see the object and the reflected object as well. You see the reflection of light as well there. That's why when you watch an aeroplane, when you see a plane, what happens is, we see darkness in front of the lights from the plane. But when it is passing through a cloud, we can see the area being lit up. That's because there is a reflective medium when it is passing through. So even if the light is present everywhere, only if there is an object to reflect, the presence of light can be experienced. In the same manner, the sat cannot be experienced without a reflecting medium. And what we say as a reflecting medium here is nama rupa. For us to say that the sat is there, we need a reflective medium, at least an object. So existence is present in all places, but for it to be experienced, we need an object. So Atma, in the same way, Atma here is present. The Atma is always there, but for us to experience this world, we need a name and form through which we can experience this world. and this name and form of this physical body. So the entire prapancha, the entire world can be split as Sat and Asat. The Sat is basically the Brahman, which is actually on which the Jagat is appearing. The entire world Jagat is Asat. So there is another argument that that Shankaracharya wants to negate, and the other argument that can come from other counters or other philosophies would be that how can Sat and Asat exist in the same place? So if you say that this world is Jagat, is Nitya, and then you also say Sat exists everywhere, the whole world has got Asat as well as Sat in the same place. How is it possible? And we take the example, the snake and the rope exist at the same time. For some people, the snake exists. For some people, the rope exists. So rope and snake exist at the same time in the same place. And similarly, Sat and Mithya can exist at the same place. Of course, Sat and Asat cannot be existing at the same place. Sat and Asat is like light and darkness. Light and darkness cannot exist in the same place because they are opposites. Whereas Sat and Mithya can exist at the same time. Another example for Sat and Mithya, we took the example of pot, clay and pot. Clay is Sat, pot is Asat. We said pot is nothing but name and form for the clay. So if you look at the same example here, pot has got limited existence. It does not have existence before the pot was made. It will not have existence after the pot is destroyed. So it's got limited existence. And it can be experienced, and it also does not have any kind of independent existence. Its existence depends on clay. If we remove clay, there is no pot. Whereas clay exists in all three times and has got independent existence. So, and clay and pot can exist at the same time. I can see clay, I can also see pot. So Sat and Mithya can exist at the same time. So Sat and Asat cannot be present within the Buddhi at the same time, but Sat and Mithya can be present at the same time. This is how Shankaracharya explains this particular shloka. This is just for information. But the key takeaways I have already mentioned. The world is Mithya, Brahma Satyam, Jagat Mithya. And this is an important concept of Advaita Vedanta. In other Vedantic schools of Vedanta, which is Dvaita Siddhanta and Visishta Advaita Siddhanta, the world is considered real, and they don't say that the Jagat is Mithya. They say the Jagat is also real. Whereas here we clearly establish that the world is Mithya, Brahmaeva Satyam. And we also say the body, the Atma, we have already we will be seeing further more about our features of Atma in this next sloka, where we will also establish more fundamental principles of Advaita Vedanta. So we will go to sloka number 17. 17. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Avinashitu Tad Viddhi Ena Sarvamidam Tatam Vinashamavyayasyasya Nakaschit Kartum Arhati. Avinashitu Tad Viddhi Ena Sarvamidam Tatam Vinashamavyayasyasya na kaschit kartum arhati. See, we are seeing this lakshanas of Atma there. We started in Sloka number 12, where we saw Atma to be Nityaha, Atma to be present at all times. Then in the Sloka 13, we saw Atma to be Nirvikaraha. Nirvikaraha means not changing. And then in the 16th Sloka, which is last Sloka, we saw Atma to be Satya, Anatma to be Nitya. So Atma Nitya, Atma Nirvikara, Atma Satya. So Anatma Anitya, Anatma Savikara, Anatma Nitya. So also all the opposites to Anatma. Now in this shloka, we are going to see Atma to be Sarvagataha, Atma to be all pervading. So the moment we say Atma to be Sarvagataha, what should we then say of Anatma? Anatma to be Alpagataha. Anatma, Sarvagataha means all pervading. Alpagataha means it's present only in one location. So this is another Swarupa of Atma that is brought out here. We already saw that Atma cannot be destroyed. And one more Atma Nityaha we saw. Here in the shloka, Bhagavan says Avinashi. He says Avinashi tu tadviddhi. Atma cannot be destroyed, indestructible. So Bhagavan himself says that Atma is indestructible. And Shankaracharya says even Ishvara cannot destroy Atma. And the reason he gives is basically why? Because Atma itself is Ishvara. The main takeaway is Atma Sarvagataha. So let us do some small vichara. So we know that time and space cannot be separated. They are related. So we say at a particular time, in this particular space, only one object can exist. So in this chair, at this point of time, I am sitting, another person cannot sit in the same chair at the same time. Another person can sit in another chair at the same time or in the same chair at another time. So that is how space and time works. And that what is accident basically? Accident is basically two things, they want to be in the same place at the same time. Law of nature does not allow that. And therefore there is collision. So from here what we can see is time and space cannot be separated. Now when we said Atma to be Nitya, that Atma is present in all three times. And we also said it is without any change. Nirvikaraha. So if Atma is present in all three times, then it should be present in all places as well. So from a time perspective, Atma is eternal, and from a space standpoint, Atma is all pervading. Atma is Purnaha. Atma is not limited by time or space. And this is the essence of this shloka here. One more thing that we have to understand is, if Atma is all pervading, Atma Sarvagataha, if Atma is all pervading, then an all pervading one has to be a formless one. There cannot be a form for it, isn't it? Because anything that is limited because of the boundaries it creates. So suppose if I talk about this room, we say what is the shape of this room? The shape of this room is square or rectangle, whatever we say. And it is basically, how do we define it? By its boundaries. By looking at the boundary of this hall, we say, okay, it is what shape? Therefore, the shape depends upon the boundary. But if an object or if a thing does not have any boundary, then what happens? It will not have any shape. It cannot have any shape. and therefore Atma has to be formless. So Bhagavan says Atma is all pervading. When Bhagavan says Atma is all pervading, then we have to say Atma is also formless. Atma is shapeless, formless. And what is the equivalent analogy or the equivalent example that we can take? Basically, Akasha, space. So Atma, Akashavat, Nirakaraha. Nirakaraha means formless. Atma is formless like space. And this is important because we always want to see how is this Atma? Where is this Atma? Because people also have this question, if there is Atma, then I would like to experience it, I would like to see it. And our answer is, we will not be able to see the Atma. We will be able to see the body, definitely, but because it has a form. And we will be able to see other external objects also because they have form. But we will not be able to see the Atma. And we are not able to see the Atma not because it is non-existent, but because it is formless. For example, how do we know that there is space? We do not see the space. But without seeing it, we accept the existence of space. Similarly, we should accept the existence of Atma even though it is invisible. What is space? Basically, space is we don't even consider this space. For example, this is space, that is also space. But what do we call them? We call them as this room as study room, the other room as living room, and so on and so forth. We don't even. Space is implicitly accepted, and it is actually not recognized also at many times. Now, if Atma Sarvagataha, Atma Nirakaraha, formless, then we can derive one more Swarupa of Atma from this. If Atma is all pervading, then how many Atmas can be there? If there is something is all pervading, then it can be only one Atma Ekaha. Only if Atma is one, it can be all pervading and present at all times. Otherwise, there will be a conflict. If it is all pervading and present at all times, it will give a conflict of space and time. If there are two Atmas, Atma A, Atma B, then Atma A cannot be in the place where Atma B is present at the same time. But we have already said Atma to be present at all times. And therefore we cannot say Atma is all pervading. If there are two Atmas, we cannot say they are all pervading Atmas, two all pervading Atmas present at the same time in the same place. It's not possible. So there can be only one Atma, just as there is only one space. Space is one only. Similarly, only one Atma is there. The same Atma is there in you, in me, in an ant, in a plant, in trees, in insects, in reptiles, everywhere, even in Ishvara. And this is the most important definition of Advaita principle. Because Advaita means we say there is only one, and that is only Brahman, and that is called as Atma, and there is only one Atma. And this is different from Dvaita and Visishta Advaita principles. In Visishta Dvaita and Dvaita principles, there are multiple Atmas, multiple Jivatmas. And then there is only one Paramatma. And what we say is, if Atma is all pervading, Bhagavan has said Sarvagataha, if it is all pervading Atma, then there can be only one Atma. just as there is only one space. So in one space, for example, in this hall, there is one space, we have multiple rooms. So enclosed within this house, there are multiple rooms. Just because there are multiple rooms, we cannot call them as 5 spaces. There is only one space. We can say 5 rooms. Similarly, we can say 5 bodies here, but there is only one Atma. If I break down this walls, there is only one space. Houses are counted, rooms are counted, but not this space. Similarly, the anatmas can be counted. This is one body, that is another body. Anatmas can be counted, but not Atma. So Atma sarvagataha, Atma ekaha. Atma formless, nirakaraha. So we'll go into the shloka. Avinashi tu tadviddhi. Avinashi tu tadviddhi. Viddhi means no. Avinashi tat tu tadviddhi. Viddhi tat tu. Know that. What is know that? That means here Atma. Know that Atma to be what? Avinashi. Avinashi is to be imperishable. Vinashi means perishable, destructible. See, Bhagavan has already given this definition earlier as Atma Nityaha. Atma Nityaha means itself, we say it cannot be destroyed. It does not have any death. Now he is repeating this Atma Nityaha again, but there we saw Atma to be eternal. Now he is saying in a different language, he says instead of eternal, he is saying it is indestructible. Vinashi means perishable, destructible. Avinashi means indestructible. So in the case of, for example, Avinashi, there is also an Avinashi Lingam near Coimbatore. It's also another name for Bhagavan Shiva. So when there is, in the case of a pot and clay example, the pot is name and form. The essence is what? Clay. Clay is Satyam. Pot is just a name and form for the clay. So in this Atma Anatma analogy, the clay is basically Atma, pot is Anatma. When I destroy the pot, does the clay get destroyed? No. So the clay does not have any destruction. It is the pot that gets destroyed. The clay continues. In the same way, when this body gets destroyed, the Atma will continue. The Anatma will be destroyed, the Anatma will be destroyed, or the Anatma will go through changes. The Anatma will have birth and death, will have all its issues. Agama payino nityaha. It is anityam. It comes and goes. Atma vinashi, Anatma vinashi, and Anatma avinashi. So Anatma can be and will be destroyed, but Atma will be avinashi. And therefore Bhagavan says, Viddhi tattu. Know that, Arjuna, know that the Atma to be indestructible. Basically, Arjuna, know this, understand this clearly. Internalize this fact. Make sure that you are able to assimilate this. Know this. And this is very important. So, Atma cannot be destroyed. Then he adds another nature of Atma. Ena sarvamidam tatam. Ena sarvamidam tatam. Ena means this Atma, that Atma. Tatam. Tatam means pervaded. That Atma means pervaded, where Sarvam Idam, all this, whatever we see, is all pervaded by this Atma. Basically, that Atma is all pervading. Avinashi tu tat viddhi yena sarvam idam pratam. So that which is indestructible, know that to be all pervading. Know that to be indestructible, know that to be all pervading. All pervading. This is the first line. In the second line, Bhagavan is going to say basically, again he is going to say Atma cannot be destroyed. Vinasham avyayasya na kaschit kartum arhati. Na kaschit kartum arhati. Na kaschit, no one. Kartum arhati, can bring about. Kartum arhati, can bring about. No one can bring about what? Vinasham. Vinasham, the destruction. Destruction of what? Asya avyayasya. Asya avyayasya. Avyayasya means, asya means this. Avyayasya means changeless. So again, more features of Atma is giving. Vinasham. No one can bring about the destruction of what? Of this changeless one. So basically he is saying Atma is all pervading in the previous line. Atma is indestructible. Now he says Atma, again he says cannot be destroyed. And then he says Atma to be changeless. Nobody can destroy this Atma. As I said, even Ishvara cannot destroy this Atma. Even atom bombs cannot destroy this Atma. Even Pralayams cannot destroy this Atma. Even during Pralayam, this Atma will be there. The only thing that will be there at all times is this Atma, Brahman. And Bhagavan is saying destroyed, cannot be destroyed. One, for us to understand that we are immortal. Nobody can kill us. But in this context, he does wants Arjuna to remember that, when you are saying Bhishma is killed, Drona is killed, Drona will be killed, Bhishma will be killed. Who is Bhishma? Who? Bhishma's Atma cannot be killed. From a philosophical angle, Bhishma is nothing but Atma. Drona is nothing but Atma. So Atma is here. You are not going to destroy anything. So why are you crying, Arjuna? Why are you thinking that you are going to kill their Atma? So when we discuss all these things, we should not think Atma to be another object that is there, which is all pervading, which is different from me, which is indestructible, and myself to be this body which undergoes these changes, this mind which undergoes changes, and that I am decaying and I am dying and that I will not be realizing where is this Atma, how is this Atma, I will die without knowing all these things. That should not be what our mind or what should our mind be saying now. What we should be saying is, I am that Atma. I have to own up to that Atma. Where I place my abhimana, where I place my attachment or my identity decides who am I. If I place my identity, if I place my abhimana on my body, then I own up to these body characteristics, which means alpagataha, I am anityam, ashashvatam, and all those things. And savikara hai, all these problems I have. But if I own up to Atma, I get the Atma characteristics. Body gets destroyed, but not Atma. So the next question then will come, what will happen to the Atma when the body gets destroyed? What will happen to the body? What will happen to the Atma if the body gets destroyed? So what will happen to the space here? If the room here is destroyed, if the room here is destroyed, will the space get destroyed? No. Will the space move to another place? No. The space will remain as it is. The space will continue to exist. In the same way, even when the body is destroyed, Atma will remain as it is. Atma, first of all, cannot travel. Atma is because it's all pervading, it's everywhere. From where it needs to go to another place, it's in only everywhere. There is no another place for Atma to go. But then we also talk about, our Atma taking another body and all those things. That is where needs to come to reflected consciousness. We will be studying about that. We've already discussed this earlier. About reflected consciousness, which the mind reflects the consciousness and is taken it to be an Atma by itself. We'll come to that later. But Atma does not move. Atma cannot be destroyed. So when the body is gone, Atma continues to exist, but because there is no body, there is no asat, there is no mithya, there is no name and form, there is no body for it to actually transact. So here Bhagavan has used a word called abhyayasya. Vyayaha means expense. In Shastras, Vyayaha is used to represent any kind of change, any kind of decline, any kind of decay. It means Vyayaha. Avyayaha means there is no decay for Atma. Atma does not go into a decay stage. In our body we have this Shad Vikaram. We already saw, I think, Asti, Jayate, Vardate, Viparinimate, and then finally Vinasham. That Vikaram is not there for Atma. There is no such thing as decay for Atma. All these expenses, Vyayaha is only for the body. For Atma there is no expense. So what can go into decay? Only when that has got Avyayam. Avyayam means, this is Shankaracharya's explanation for Avyaya. Avyaya, he says, only that has got Avyayam. Avyayam means parts, divisions. Only when that which has got parts or divisions can undergo decay. For example, this body has got parts, hands, legs, all those things. These are all divisions. Tree has got divisions, leaves, branches, fruits, branches, stem, whatever, flowers. So that which has got divisions will undergo decay. The decay happens for different body parts, and therefore as a result the whole body also decays. And the decay cannot be avoided for a body also. And therefore, whereas Atma does not have any parts, it is one whole, and therefore it is Avyayam. Another thing is, a person need not undergo change. For a practical example is, if things around me undergo decay, then I will also go through decay quickly. If I am surrounded by healthy things, by healthy people, healthy things, and if and generally our attachment is on things around us. So whomever I identify with, whomever I am having attachment on, my health really will rely upon their health as well. And that could be animate things or inanimate things. I could be attached to a house, and if the house is undergoing decay, obviously my body will also undergo decay quickly. Or if my wealth, I got attachment to my wealth, and if the wealth goes down, my body also will see its decay quickly. If it's with people, if the people are energetic, I will also be energetic. If they are actually weak or getting weaker, I will also get weaker. So I am basically whom I identify with. Atmiya bhavam, atmiya bhavat nashaha. So Atma, so I as in the mind is one which actually has this attachment towards other things. Atma does not have any attachment. Atma does not think anything of itself. Atma does not have any abhimana. It is my ahankara, my ahankara which has got this abhimana on this body, on this mind. And therefore this ahankara thinks the mind to be myself, and if the attachment of the mind is on some other object which is decaying, then my mind also goes down. And therefore Vyayam is not possible for Atma, because Atma does not have any attachment. And just because a decaying object is superimposed on Atma, this whole world is Brahman appearing as Jagat, and the Jagat is decaying. The next question is, if Jagat is decaying, will this Brahman also decay? Because after all, the Jagat is actually on top of Brahman. We say it is not possible, because what is Jagat is nothing but superimposition on a Brahman. Just because the Jagat decays, Atma will not decay. The substratum will not decay. And the example, again we will go back to the rope snake example. The rope is the adhara for snake. The snake cannot be the cause of decay of rope. Just because the snake seems to be decaying doesn't mean that the rope is going to get decayed. The mirage is not going to decay the desert, although the desert is the adhara for mirage. So what should we do to avoid decay? We should not think of anything to be ours. If I think anything to be ours, then when that undergoes a change, I will also have a problem. So avoid attachment as much as possible on things around us, including our own body. If we think that the body is mine and the body is going through change and the body is having a problem, I will also go down. So is the mind. We should try to have a kind of a witness mentality. We should have a witness mentality to see this body and mind to be an object that has been given to me. Just like I have my car, my house, or my other possessions, this body has been given to me. This mind has been given to me for transactional purposes. And I am the witness principle behind it. If we are able to sort of come to that level, we will be able to avoid getting decayed. So even though the body can destroy, Atma cannot be destroyed. Atma sarvagataha, Atma avinashi. Here, this is the main takeaway from this sloka. Then the next sloka, we'll go with sloka. Do we have time? Next sloka. Antavanta ime dehaha nityasyokta sharirinaha anashino aprameyasya tasmat yudhyasva bharata. Antavanta ime dehaha nityasyokta sharirinaha anashino aprameyasya tasmat yudhyasva bharata. So here Bhagavan is giving two more lakshanas here. One, he says Atma to be Kootastha Nityam and Atma to be Aprameyah. Kootastha Nityam. Kootastha Nityam we have already seen. Kootastha Nityam means changeless eternal. Nityam means eternal. Kootastha Nityam means changeless eternal. Aprameyaha. Aprameyaha means un-objectifiable. It is never an object of knowledge. It is indriya mana vak agocharam. It cannot be experienced by the sense organs, indriyas. It cannot be experienced by mind, mano. It cannot be experienced through words, vak agocharam. Kootastha Nityam, changeless eternal. Does that mean there is something called changing eternal? Yes, there is. So Nityam can be classified into two: Kootastha Nityam and Pravaaha Nityam. Pravaaha Nityam means it keeps changing, but it remains eternal. At least looks like eternal. And then Kootastha Nityam means it does not change and it is eternal. So the example that we give for Pravaaha Nityam is when we are sitting on the banks of a river and the water keeps flowing. What happens? We can say that the river is perennial, the river exists, river is Nityam. But the water that I see, the drop of water that I see now does not exist the next moment at the same place. The water I see keeps changing. Pravaaha means flowing. So just like the water keeps flowing but it remains eternal. So there is a change but yet it remains eternal. It's present always. That is called as Pravaaha Nityam. So the Jagat is Pravaaha Nityam. This world keeps changing. What we see now of this world a few hundred years ago, it was not the same. A few hundred years later, it will not be the same. So the world keeps changing, but it exists, it keeps existing. At least we don't know, we have not seen one pralayam yet. So it remains, but it keeps changing. This prapancha, this world is in the pralaya. During the pralaya, what happens is it goes into an unmanifest form, and then during srishti or creation, it comes out as in a manifested form. So there is avyaktam during pralayam and vyaktam during srishti. So it keeps changing, but it is always there. So the prapancha will go to avyakta stage, and then from avyakta stage to vyakta stage, and then back to avyakta stage. So it keeps changing, but it is always present. And that's why it's called as Pravaaha Nityam. Now, if we get a doubt that whether the Atma also undergoes a change, because I am undergoing a change, that is what we say. When our body undergoes a change, when our mind undergoes a change, we say, I am undergoing a change. So, is the Atma really undergoing change? Bhagavan wants to make it clear, no, Atma is not like that. Atma is not like that of kind of Nityam. It is Kootastha Nityam. It does not change. Jagat keeps changing because of Maya. It keeps changing. Whereas Brahman or Atma, it does not change. And that is what is given in the first line by Bhagavan. He says, Antavanta ime deyaha nityasyokta sharirinaha. Antavantaha. Antavantaha means perishable. Antah means maranam. Okay, I think we'll stop here. Let's continue in the next class. We'll go with the slokas in the next class. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Thank you.
Thank you, Sri Gurubhyo Namaha.